Good morning, it's October 9th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Joe Biden chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, so he fancies himself as a foreign policy expert and guru. The facts and events say something entirely different. The first major foreign policy blunder by the Biden administration was the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. It cost the lives of 13 servicemen and women. It could have been avoided if the withdrawal had been better planned and organized. The U.S. should have used Bagram Air Base to stage the withdrawal because it was heavily fortified and guarded. Instead, they chose to use the airport just outside of Kabul. We could have withdrawn much of our equipment and armaments over time, but instead they were left to fall into the hands of the Taliban. We could have ensured that the Afghanis that assisted us in the long war were protected and evacuated, but instead most of them were left to fend for themselves, and ultimately they were dealt with by the Taliban. World leaders, especially those that we would consider adversaries, watched this and decided that Joe Biden was not someone that would confront them if they took aggressive actions. Vladimir Putin decided that now was the time to invade Ukraine, and what many thought would be a short war has turned into a drawn-out affair that has cost thousands of lives and billions of American dollars as we belatedly tried to assist Ukraine. We could have given Ukraine the proper military equipment to include modern tanks and aircraft, but Biden diddled trying to determine what Putin would think or do if he acted in a prudent manner. In Asia, we have watched China become more and more aggressive in showing its military might. It's only a matter of time when they decide the time is right for them to invade Taiwan and force Biden's hand. The 1979 Taiwan Relations Act, something that I worked on personally at the time as a key staff member to Senator Orrin Hatch, states a couple of points that Biden would have to consider. It does not guarantee the U.S. would intervene if the PRC invades Taiwan, but it does state the United States will make available to Taiwan such defense articles and defense services in such quantity as may be necessary to enable Taiwan to maintain a sufficient self-defense capability and shall maintain the capacity of the United States to resist any resort to force or other forms of coercion that would jeopardize the security, socio-economic system of the people on Taiwan. End quote. The act further stipulates that the United States will, quote, consider any effort to determine the future of Taiwan by other than peaceful means, including boycotts or embargoes, a threat to the peace and security of the Western Pacific area and of grave concern to the United States. End quote. That was an amendment put in by Senator Hatch. Would Joe Biden live up to the language of that act that he himself voted for in 1979? Or would he offer some verbiage that supports Taiwan but does not give them the necessary weapons to defend themselves? He made a very strong statement in 2022 in Tokyo when asked if he was willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan. He gave a flat yes to the question, which goes further than the Taiwan Relations Act. But like a lot of Biden off-the-cuff comments, the White House staff had to immediately walk that back and say the policy's not changed. The attack on Israel was just another example of how emboldened our enemies have become. Biden ended sanctions on Iran. He then paid them off. The result is they have more funds to give to terrorists around the Middle East. Now, does anyone think that Hamas has the money and arms to launch that attack on Israel this past weekend? They're funded by Iran, and both Iran and Hamas know that Biden will not take any drastic action. Hamas terrorists brutally killed women and children in the streets. They took hostages, including many that are American citizens living in Israel. Will they now tell Biden to pony up the cash to release them so they can replenish their rockets? If Biden truly had some backbone, he would immediately implement the harshest sanctions on Iran as possible. He would make it clear that buying Iranian oil would mean that sanctions would apply to you as well. He would freeze all Iranian assets anywhere in the world that was possible, including the money in Qatar that, as the administration weekly said, could not have been used for terrorism because Iran's not taken possession of it. I guess they never heard of the concept of money being fungible. And to top that off, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi told reporters in September that his government planned to use the money, quote, wherever we need it, end quote. And the reports are that both Hamas and Hezbollah have said that Iran helped them plan the attack. That should be enough for Biden to act forcibly. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has made it clear that he will not negotiate with terrorists. He has declared war on Hamas. He's willing to be the leader in Israel and take the fight to these terrorists. His history shows he will not back down. He will use the superior military might of Israel to inflict grievous harm on Hamas and anyone else that shelters them in Gaza. He might even use the Mossad to take out a few key Iranians. If Biden has some courage, he would immediately show that he can become a leader. after watching the brutality of Hamas terrorists killing women and children, desecrating bodies, taking hostages, and even raping women, he would call on Israel to eradicate Hamas from the Gaza Strip. He would make it plain that the Palestinians in Gaza need to push these terrorists out of their country. Then he would denounce the idiots in the Congress, the members of the squad who have supported these terrorists in word. He would call for them to denounce these terrorists, or he would call for their defeat in primaries and put an end to this tacit support of terrorism. Being a leader requires action and not feeble words. Time to step up, Joe. Put up or shut up. It's been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.